Okay, welcome back. We are reanalyzing this Barbara Walters. I think this interview was in 2000 after John and Patsy had written their book. They want to do a press tour, obviously, with Barbara Walters on 2020. And so we're kind of analyzing this interview, and we were questioning some of the behavior and some of the things that John and Patsy paid attention to, some of the ways they acted during sort of like the early moments of the investigation. So we're going to kind of continue working through that problem.
Place.
So you thought perhaps the
It
kidnapper
was-
had gone through that window?
That was my first impression, yes.
7 hours after the police first arrived, it was now around 1 p.m., the police asked you and a friend to search the whole house again. At that point, you opened the door to the small room. Tell me about it.
I knew instantly what I'd found. I'd found my daughter. And
What did you see?
I saw her lying on the floor with a white blanket. She was lying on a white blanket. Her hands were tied above her head. She had tape over her mouth. Her eyes were closed. I immediately knelt down over her, felt her cheek, took the tape off immediately off her mouth. I tried to untie the cord that was around her arms. I couldn't get the knot untied.
Thought she was dead. Did you scream?
I screamed. I picked her up, and I ran upstairs. And it was like a dream when you scream, but you can't say anything. All you can do is scream. That's what I did.
Yes.
I'm a little bit hesitant, but I'll rewind.
7 hours after the police first arrived, it was now around 1 p.m., the police asked you and a friend to search the whole house again. At that point, you opened the door to the small room. Tell me.
Yeah, because we don't understand the motivation as to why he didn't check this door in the first place. Like, what made you check this door now? Which is okay. You don't have to, that's okay if you missed it the first time. But also, we would give grace to the police as well if they missed it the first time, because now you're rechecking your notes and going back to kind of see if I missed something, because our first initial sweep was we want to check all windows and doors. This didn't have a window or a door, so it didn't have an obvious exit point.
Tell me about it.
I knew instantly what I'd found. I'd found my daughter. And
What did you see?
I saw her lying on the floor with a white blanket. She was lying on a white blanket. Her hands were tied above her head. She had tape over her mouth. Her eyes were closed. I immediately knelt down over her.
John didn't give specifics. Barbara had to go back and pull him into specifics. John and Patsy are trying to rush through explanations that should not be rushed through. Like, hey, your daughter's missing. What the heck happened? People want to know that. The police want to know that. What happened? And Josh was like, and I'm sorry, Josh. John was like, oh, I looked, and immediately, I knew what it was. Give us some context. We don't know what you're talking about. I knew it was my daughter. What did you see? Let's not rush this.
Felt her cheek, took the tape off immediately off her mouth. I tried to untie the cord that was around her arms. I couldn't get the knot untied.
Thought she was dead. Did you scream?
I screamed. I picked her up, and I ran upstairs. And it was like a dream when you scream, but you can't say anything. All you can do is scream. That's what I did.
He doesn't say she was cold to the touch. He touched her cheek. He gave us that detail, but he doesn't say she was cold to the touch. JonBenét was in rigor mortis and livor mortis at this time. From my understanding, and I could be wrong, I'm not afraid to be wrong, she should have been cold to the touch. It was kind of throwing me off. She should have been cold to the touch. So yeah, typically 0 to 3 hours, the body's generally still kind of soft and may still feel warm because it's still kind of retaining that heat. But like 3 to 12 hours, rigor mortis begins to set in, starting with smaller muscles like the jaw and eyelids. I think the body is losing heat at a rate of roughly 1.5 degrees Fahrenheit. Or I think 0.83 degrees Celsius per hour. So, and then 12 to 36 hours. I think this is according to Britannica. But anyways, 12 to 36 hours, the body typically reaches peak stiffness and will feel cold to the touch because it has cooled down to match the surrounding room temperature. John didn't say she felt cool to the touch. That would have been, I think, an initial highlight. Like people typically describe when you find somebody dead and maybe you don't even touch them. When you find somebody dead, you describe what they're looking at. Like the 911, you call 911, 911 might say, what's going on? What's happening? You will describe and say, I don't know. They're not moving and his eyes are open and he's not blinking and it doesn't look like he's breathing. And so you can kind of describe and you're descriptive about what you're seeing. John rushed straight through that and said, I knew immediately that was my daughter. Let's get on with the rest of the questions. Almost sort of like condensing the process that kind of, almost naturally, the process of discussing and speaking about this that almost naturally comes out. That's interesting.
Yes.
I took her upstairs and laid her on the floor and still had a hope that she was alive.
I remember walking in and seeing her lying there in front of the Christmas tree. And I looked at John and he said, she's dead. And nothing felt real. It felt like it was, my life was in slow motion and this was not really happening. I knelt down over her and just laid my body on her body and my cheek against her cheek, and it was cold. And I just kept saying, no, that's cold.
You see? You see? You see what I'm saying? It speaks for itself. I felt her cheek because, as Google is saying, the body naturally transfers heat. You're gonna and like so when I press my cheek, it's a jolting experience. When you say if you retain heat better than someone, and you touch them and they're cold, they immediately feel your warmth, and you immediately feel their coldness. It's a stark sort of like feeling or a stark contrast, but it's more of like a very hard contrast, noticeable contrast in the temperatures between you two. And Patsy is naturally noting, without even being asked, naturally noting, I put my cheek to cheek, skin to skin. I wanted to feel her. I wanted to feel my daughter. I got close to my daughter. And I could feel her coldness. And that without saying anything, that is speaking a lot. I got down there and I'm telling you as a mom how I felt, what I experienced, and what indicated to me that my daughter was gone, and how I internalized that and how I accepted that when I experienced it. I had some questions about Patsy saying that she came into JonBenét being over by the Christmas tree. And so I wanted to look for a little bit of clarification there. So I had a couple of questions as I was looking through some of the interview material. So the first thing was that John brings the body upstairs to the hallway. So John is coming from, he's coming up from the basement and he's in the kitchen now. And because I always think about it as he comes up these stairs and he's immediately into the hallway in front of the house. That's not true. He comes up the stairs and he has to cross through the kitchen. Well, not cross through, but he has to come through the rest of the kitchen, the remaining parts of the kitchen, and then into the front hallway. And so Detective Linda Arndt in her 1997 police report, Detective Linda Arndt states that she stood in the hallway and watched John Ramsey come up the basement stairs carrying JonBenét in front of him. Arndt instructed John to lay the little girl's body down on the rug just inside the front door. Interestingly, though, John is carrying JonBenét like this and away from him. I wonder what would make you do that? You know, like, and I say that because it almost indicates a disassociation. And that never set well with me. This sort of disassociative body language between John and JonBenét here, where he picks her up and holds her by her waist and holds her out away from him to kind of push away. It's almost as if you hold something up and you look away from it because you don't want to, you know what I mean? You kind of, I don't want to. It's weird because John picks her up and says, "Get away from me." Basically, he picks her up and is like, "Oh, get away from me." You know, and I'm not saying that's what he said, but his body language said, "Oh yeah, I get away from me. I'm holding you far away." Instead of, you know, his words are saying nurturing. This is my baby girl. I got down there, man, and I pulled the tape off her and I tried to untie this, and that makes sense. Like, man, what is this stuff on my baby? Man, I can't have you. That's how people respond when they see their loved one sometimes, and they're like, "Oh my goodness, I gotta figure out how to get this off." And it's crazy because their mind does it automatically because they know the person's dead, and that's very heartbreaking. They know the person's dead, but they still try to relieve the pressure to sort of psychologically relieve the pain. So I understand when John does that, and that's very nurturing. That's very caring. You know, she has a blanket around her, which is also very nurturing, very caring. So John's first response was to be nurturing and caring, but when he's bringing her upstairs, he is no longer in the nurturing and caring role of carrying her kind of like this, you know, like his baby girl, carrying her in his arms close to his body. You know, he carries her up and away from him as if she's something to be shunned. And it could tell you one of two things. It could tell you that this is a new sensation. This is a new phenomenon to me. And I don't want to engage with this. Or to finish that thought before I jump to this next point, I don't know. Cuz it's like I'm stuck on the fact that it's kind of weird to me that you show me nurturing, but then you show me disassociation so fast, so quickly, such a quick turnaround. You can be hot one moment and then cold the next. But anyways, I was going to go on to say that John takes JonBenét. He's kind of nurturing her, and then he picks her up and moves her away, brings her up the stairs. And when Patsy sees her, though, Patsy's immediately sort of drawn to her, to hug her, pull her tight, go skin to skin, immediately to be nurturing. And then as Detective Fred Patterson said, when he came in, Patsy had JonBenét in her arms, sort of rocking, holding her close. And it's weird to me because Patsy's doing the things that you would expect a parent to do who's truly suffered loss and doesn't want to let go. I want to try to be careful. You have, I guess I'm kind of stuck on touching a dead body. I'm watching murder mysteries, crime scene investigations. I don't remember anybody saying when they first saw their loved one, I don't remember anybody saying my first thought was to move them. I know people who touch their loved one and they scream and they holler, get up, get up, get up. It's very sad. They say, get up, get up. No, you got to get up. And somebody has to drag them. And that's when this person is in sort of like this sort of extremely distraught, and they might pick them up and run to the ambulance. Or try to find an ambulance or try to, run to and say, but they lay there with them screaming and crying because they realize that the realization sets in on them that there's nothing else I can do. It's a very sad realization because death is so final. That's why it's important to understand the importance of life, because death is so final. And these sort of two stages of John, in that on one moment he's hot, he's close, he's exhibiting this parental care and nurture. But then in the next moment, he's holding her away as if this is death. I don't know how to deal with this. I don't want to engage. Because I was going to say the comfort level of John and Patsy to be touching JonBenét, it's quite interesting because JonBenét is stiff. She's stiff as a board. So you're not even touching your daughter. You're not even touching your daughter in a state of warmth and in a state of like limberness and flexibility. The feeling of JonBenét, the feeling of the skin is different. It's different. It's cold. It's hard. I understand it, but it's kind of like, it's a little weird how that situation was handled. The touching of JonBenét. It's a little weird. Anyways, John brings her up. Linda Arndt sees him. Arndt instructed John to lay the little girl's body down on the rug just inside the front door. And then she sends John away. And in that same police report, Arndt notes that she checked for signs of life, detected the odor of decay and told John that his daughter was dead. When John moaned in response, Arndt immediately instructed him to leave the hallway and go back to the den to be with Patsy and the other people congregated there. Detective Arndt moves the body. It was actually while John was out of the room, JonBenét was moved. In her report, Detective Arndt details, after John Ramsey left, I picked up JonBenét and carried her into the living room. I laid JonBenét on the rug located inside the living room. In the book, The Death of Innocence, the Ramseys confirm that this area of the living room was directly in front of the Christmas tree. Linda Arndt then explains in her 1997 report that while she was alone with the body in the living room, she adjusted JonBenét's clothing. She states, I covered the wound on JonBenét's neck with her long-sleeved shirt before John Ramsey arrived in the living room. And then John returns and the blanket is added. In her report, Detective Arndt notes that John Ramsey returned to the living room 1 to 2 minutes after she had sent him away. And as he entered, he grabbed a throw blanket from a nearby chair, placed it over JonBenét, and then knelt on the floor beside her. Arndt describes John stroking his daughter's hair, calling her his little angel, and lying down next to her body, making sounds as though he were crying. In the same report, Arndt describes John rolling away from the body. That's a visual. Rolling away from the body and looking toward the hallway. At this point, Patsy Ramsey appeared, seemingly unable to walk without the assistance of friends holding her up. Arndt notes that when Patsy saw JonBenét, she immediately went to her and laid on top of her, as Patsy is describing. John remained to the right of the body, while Patsy, Fleet White, Priscilla White, and other friends surrounded them on the floor. Patsy began loudly crying and moaning and praying. And so, in terms of the room being cleared after that, Detective Arndt notes that she stood near the piano watching the scene unfold while she desperately called 911 again on a cell phone to get backup. And once additional Boulder police officers and paramedics finally arrived, everyone was cleared out of the living room and the body was left exactly where Arndt had placed it. So there's some interesting activity around, we move JonBenét in the living room and how we respond to the movement. I think it's quite interesting that Linda Arndt felt the need to move JonBenét's shirt up over her injury on her neck. And I imagine she did it because of how gruesome it looked. Because if you just look at the neck and you got parents there, she's trying to be a concerned police officer and have some sort of empathy, so she just moves the shirt up. And John takes the next step and he comes back in, and Linda had sent him away, but John takes the next step and he enters and grabs a throw blanket from nearby and places it on JonBenét, and he kneels beside her. I can understand now why Linda Arndt clutched her gun. She's a lady in a house full of people. I'm by myself. First of all, she's an officer in a house full of people she doesn't know. There's 3 men here. She doesn't know these guys. she's already like, yo, something's fishy. And this is what I'm saying. This is the problem that I think people don't understand, that the police department and I think everyone else tried to get over, but struggled to get over. They were like, from the get-go, man, some don't seem right. Some ain't right. You just get this feeling in the pit of your stomach that like something is not right. I don't know what it is, but something feels off and I don't like it. This feels weird to me. I don't like it. I can't tell you what it is. I can't tell you who it is. I can't tell you why, but something doesn't feel right. And Linda has sent John away. She's not even paying attention. She's not even watching her back. And John pops in. She's probably thinking with a cop mind, like, a lot of times it's the parents. I don't want to believe that. We thought it was a kidnapping, but here I am with a body in my face, and this is now a homicide. So she tries to clear John away because she's by herself. So she tries to clear John away and clear people away from the body as much as possible. And John is sent away. Now, I want you to notice a contradiction of behavior here. Two big moments. Two big moments, okay? I want you to think about when John was strapped with the wiretap, so that if anybody called, he knew what to do, he knew what to say. John, that was an important point, because we are waiting on the call to see if this person is going to call or not, give us a ransom so we can get our daughter back. John left the area and went on about his business. John went looking around the house, and John went into the den and the living room with all his friends. Now, mind you, prior to being suited with the wiretapping stuff, John was moving around the house. But when 10 o'clock came and went, you couldn't find John. John was in the living room with his family, consulting, trying to console Patsy and consulting with his friends and talking with them. And you got the cop standing out there by herself, kind of like, what's going on? I want to describe the feeling for you, because if you say, someone comes to you and says, oh my goodness, I need help. I'm out here on the side of the road and I need somebody to come help me, start my car. And you get out there and you lift the hood up and you're like, okay, I got my car. We got the jumper cables. I'm going to, attach these jumper cables and we're going to get you running. We're going to get you up and running. And you attach the jumper cables to from your car to your battery, or maybe on your battery, and you're holding the other set of jumper cables to attach to the other side of the car. You turn around and the person has left. Or a better example, or to take that example further, you start the car and you're like, all right, now all we need for you is to get in the car and drive off. You turn around, this person then walked off, and they're nowhere to be found. And you're like, you're standing there with two jumper cables in your hand, and you're like, Did you need my help, or what am I missing? Now my brother wants to call me. It's been days. Now he wants to call me. I'm in the middle of something, talking to you guys. I'm confused. Do you want help or not? That's what I'm confused about. I helped you. You seem like you were really pressed about having your car started for you, get you off the side of the road so you can go. I turn around, you down the street walking, and your car's still here running. I'm like, hey, don't you want to? I'm confused, kind of lost on what to do. That's how John, because you got John in the other room, and it's like, I set you up for a wiretap. It's 10 o'clock. Do we want to check in? Do we want to talk about this? What do we want to do? John ain't nowhere to be found. Contrast that with. Now, before, I couldn't get you to come in the room and have a conversation about this person who was supposed to call us at 10 o'clock. Y'all sitting in the room, don't want to talk, don't want to communicate, just want to sit huddled up and quiet. Oh, it's quiet now. But when we find the body and I say, clear out, go sit in there with your friends like you were doing before, I mean, you know how to do that. Go figure out something to do. Stay out of my face. Instead of staying in the room, and this is what doesn't sit right with me. And not only did John not stay in the room, John came back in the room and took authority over the crime scene. I don't think we talk about that enough. We blame the Boulder Police Department, but I don't think we talk enough about John's sort of initiative and assertiveness in this moment. I want you to take a couple seconds to think about how assertive John was at certain points of the investigation. JonBenét is on the ground. The police say, this is a crime scene, step away. John doesn't hear none of that. John is sent away. He follows instructions and he comes back. And not only does he now re-enter a crime scene where the police have told him step away, but for some reason, we don't know, John grabs a cover and throws it on top of JonBenét. Why did you do that? I would love the answer to that. How did we go from me telling you your daughter is dead, you stroked her hair, you said my little angel, you rolled over, got up and left? What in your mind was going on to where you said in the other room after a couple seconds, I need to go back in there and throw a cover over JonBenét? What do we have on JonBenét? Linda Arndt had already covered up the neck. As we saw, we know how John threw it over. He threw it completely over her face. Because as we see, I'll show you. This is what we have resulting after what John did. Linda Arndt comes in, and as you can clearly see, there's no rope here. There's only a rope here. There's not one here. So it's like her hands are over her head. I mean, they ain't tied. I mean, ain't no restrictions on this girl. I mean, what are we talking about? You know, this girl ain't been restricted by nothing. So anyways, and as you can see her little fingernails and stuff like that. See little black tips on it. But anyways, the cover is thrown over her completely. She's completely covered, which makes me think. Because what's weird to me is your reaction. It's not that it's like, why did you do what you did? Why did you come in? And Linda Arndt was down there by JonBenét's body, assessing and analyzing. And John just comes up and throws a blanket over JonBenét completely. I told you to go leave, and you just go throw a cover over her. Could mean that he was struggling with the continued view of her body, and he made the decision to say, This is too much for us. This is too much for me to bear. I need to cover her face because I don't want to see this anymore. Because I told you to walk away. I told you to leave. But apparently you were watching me as I was analyzing her. So much so that there was an impulse. Because that doesn't happen just, whatever. That's impulsive, right? It's kind of like you're thinking about something long and hard, and then you said, I got to do something about this. About what? And so you wanted to cover her sort of as a mental way, possibly as a mental way of saying, I can't stand to see her like this, which makes sense. But you've now interrupted what Linda had going on, and you've essentially shut down Linda's ability to do her job as an officer. So we ask about the Ramseys, and we ask about why the BPD didn't do what they were supposed to do. And we can see these little microaggressions right here as to why that is the case. Because as I'm trying to do my job, you're stopping me at every turn. I mean, I'm literally in this girl's face trying to analyze and trying to assess. And for some reason, you came in here and threw a cover over her. You didn't say, detective, what do you think? What are you seeing? What can you tell us from what you're seeing so far? This is crazy. Has this ever happened? John didn't ask any questions. He just came in and threw the cover over JonBenét. It's and it's important to me. I'm harping on it because if you think about it for a second, it's a very brute force move. And not only is it an implication of brute force, it could be an implication of concealment, because now he's concealing JonBenét for good reason. If you think differently, for good reason, he's concealing her. I don't want my daughter to be exposed. Linda Arndt said, hey, for the purposes of the family, I don't want you guys to see this thing. I don't want you guys to see the injury. So I'm just going to cover it up. But John takes it a step further and says, that's not enough. I don't want to see her at all. And I'm a little fuzzy on after this because he covers her up. I'm a little fuzzy on at this point whether or not after this, and I guess I can ask after this, whether or not then they came back and they all came back in the room and sort of huddled around her and kind of, said their final goodbyes and stuff like that. But what's not talked about enough is the fact that what was the response to her body being found when she was supposed to be kidnapped? And no one asked the question about or said to the detectives, what does this mean? We thought we had more time. What does it mean when you find, does this mean that the ransom note is a fake? Does it mean that the ransom note is a lie? We found our daughter here. What does that mean? Does it now point to something other than a kidnapping? What does this case become? We're confused because the ransom note said that she was gone, but now it's saying that she's here. Neither John nor Patsy. John and Patsy are there answering questions. They're not asking questions. They're answering questions. Think about that. That's radically different. They're not asking, why would this be? What do we make sense of this? Have you seen this before? They're fielding questions of, I didn't do anything wrong. Why are you trying to say it's me? Why are you looking at me? What's the point with me? Why are you looking at me like that? They immediately got defensive, like, oh, hold on. Why are you trying to? They're not asking any questions. They're trying to get you to stop asking them questions. They don't want to answer nothing. Oh, you know what? We gave them, for you to run up and throw this here while this lady is actively trying to investigate. If you can think about it like this. Say you live with your spouse or something like that, or what have you, or a friend comes over and you're down, say maybe you're doing a crossword puzzle or something like that, and you got your, you're kind of looking and you got your highlighter in your hand. I was doing a crossword puzzle the other day. That's why I say that. I just bought a crossword puzzle book just because I wanted to a little bit of nostalgia. So I was like, man, I'm going to do this crossword puzzle. And I just need to keep going. But anyways, I have this crossword puzzle and I got my highlighter and I'm doing my stuff, and say, somebody walks up behind me and throws a magazine right on my crossword puzzle. Guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to look up and be like, what'd you do that for? You couldn't have laid the magazine next to me. You had to lay it right on top of my crossword puzzle. That's how weird it is. It's actually quite rude. Why was John's first instinct to be rude to the detective? What did the detective do? Why are you being rude to me? Why are you performing an action that's rude? And why are you being so brute in your response and so forceful and so assertive in your response to me analyzing and assessing the case? Analyzing and assessing. It's important because there are signs, there are markers, there are injuries on JonBenét that the detective needs to look and see and check on. When you throw this entire blanket over JonBenét, you effectively prevent the detective from seeing anything else. Now she has to either leave it there or uncover it and keep looking. That is probably where she got nervous. Because it's like, what kind of a person? It's not what you did, it's how you did it. What kind of a person walks into a room while I'm analyzing, as a cop, while I'm analyzing a dead body, and essentially covers the dead body up without allowing me time to continue to do my job? What kind of a person does that? That would make me nervous, because if you're bold enough to do that, then yeah, man, I'm going to put my hand on my holster, because it's like that in my mind, I'm trying to be cool, but I don't know you, bro. I don't know what you're capable of. So I get a little bit uncomfortable. I want to disengage. Because, hey, bro, hold on. Now it's about to get a little bit contentious. Because I'm not like, hey, bro. I'm trying to do my thing. I'm trying to investigate. I don't need you. Look, I've been nice. I've been here. I've been nice. I've been cordial. I've been respectful. I already don't like the vibe I'm getting from you just because the energy and how we interact. But Linda did not she never mentioned that to John. Linda did not let that stand in her way of analyzing this case and trying to keep an open mind. She said, yo, he was cordial. He was, nah. But she did not let that stop her from interacting with him. John didn't know that. She still hooked John up to the tracing device and said, let's continue to work together. Let's continue to make this happen. She didn't tell John, hey man, something seems funny about you. She just kept doing her work. In spite of her better judgment, she just kept doing her work. And now I'm down here and it's like, yo, y'all told me that this girl was kidnapped. But we finding the body in here, and in her mind, she's like, I know what this means. this means this is a homicide. This ain't no kidnapping case. This is homicide. And one of the first places we got to look is we got to look at the family. But I'm here by myself. So I got to watch what I say. I got to be careful. But asking the hard questions now might be a little bit difficult because I don't know if these people are combative and if things can escalate or where they can escalate to. That's what Linda has to worry about. I don't know where this can go. I'm a little concerned. And that's, I guess, my issue. Because there's some weirdness going on with how you just come over here and cover her up. But anyways, I'm going to take another break. Probably call my brother back. And then I'll jump back on this analysis. And we'll see you then. Take care.